Tonight, we are honored to welcome this remarkable lady, visionary and voice for Africa's tech, Rebecca Enonchong. Rebecca, it's a pleasure to have you. Please, thank you for joining the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. You are out there in, I believe, somewhere either in Yaoundé or in Douala, and you are absolutely monitoring the political developments going on in Cameroon. And I know that back here in the United States, where you also have a residence, you have been very much concerned with the political situation in the country ever since the conflict between La République du Cameroon and the Southern Cameroons emerged in 2016. Looking at what is going on the ground now in Cameroon with their political election, do you see any hope?
Oh my goodness, I do. I moved back to Cameroon in 2004. And I was therefore here in 2008 when the riots started, the food riots started. And I since that day, since those riots of 2004, I have never seen the kind of energy that we're seeing now. It's very palpable. You can really sense a very different energy. The Cameroonians are fed up and they've had enough and they want change and they want it now. And they're not asking nicely. They will fight for this change. And as I said, I've never felt this. It's very different, and it's at every level of the society, from the street kids all the way to even some very big business people, officials. Of course, they're not going to say it openly, but everybody is fed up and is not ready to have another 7 years of
Do you think the momentum out there is, as you put it, is much more than what we observed in the 90s with the SDF and John Frundi?
I think it's similar. It's similar to the 90s. I was also involved back then. So I started my non-professional activities, I think, in 1988. Started demonstrations in front of the Cameroon embassy. Some people might remember with CAMSA USA. We were fighting for democracy and human rights in Cameroon. So I've seen a lot of this happen. And so even in 1992, the fervor was similar. However, it was a very different environment because we were, believe it or not, more free in 1992 than we are today. And so what happened after 1992 is those elections and the stolen victory led to the Biya regime being a lot more protective of its seat. And so much more repressive. And that because they've been so much more repressive, it's been very hard to get that sentiment back up again. But I think I've seen it. I've seen it, and as I said, it's something similar to what we saw in 2008, but that was immediately stopped. Beer coming in and killing all these children that were asking for better foods. And water and very, very basic things that had come out in the streets to ask for these things. But that was repressed. I don't think that they can do that today. Because I think even it, as I said, it's all segments of society. And that includes the security forces. They're humans, they're Cameroonians, and they're also suffering in this environment. And so I think we're at a tipping point. I've never seen this type of energy in Cameroon where, as you noted, Chiroma is the leading candidate today. and he's not popular. It's not because he's popular. People do not like Chiroma. They hate him from what he did when he was minister, but
Minister,
they
yeah.
see him as an opportunity to take back control of their country. People have had enough, and I don't see any possibility of Cameroon ever being the same again. I don't know what's going to happen on election day. I think that when you have an animal that's damaged, that's scared, the reaction is sometimes, when they have their back against the wall, we don't know how this regime will react, and we expect the worst. But I can assure you that regardless of what happens, this country will never ever be the same again.
No, you talk about Isai Chiroma, how unpopular that he was or has been. He is coming out of the regime. I mean, if you were looking for change, you will not go looking for that change in the belly of the same regime that has turned the country into what it is today. And yet, when you look at the lineup, the political lineup, there are these other candidates who have never been part of the government. What do people on the ground, who are there, what do they see in Isai Chiroma?
A fighter, right? So what we really need, and I wrote a small piece about this a few days ago. We're going against gangsters, so it's a gangster against gangster. So what we're looking for is our own thug, right? And
Yes.
and so all these other candidates, they have very nice resumes, CVs, profiles, programs. We're not looking for that right now. We need somebody to break down the door to this system. Let us in, let us take back this country, and then leave, right? So
Yes.
Chioma, very early on in the campaign, which is not that long ago, there's a platform called the Union for Change, and it's unionforchange.org.
Right.
It's a coalition of political parties, political associations that were looking to support a candidate. And they created their own platform, which was basically a transitional platform, saying that we want a candidate that'll be in for 3 to 5 years, agrees to that, agrees not to ask for a second term, agrees to free all political prisoners as one of the first actions to be taken, agrees to sit down with dialogue with all actors and stakeholders. And they shopped this around and to all the candidates. And the one that signed immediately was Issa Chiroma. And there are other reasons as well why he made a good candidate. A lot of the votes comes from the north. If you look at the Great North, so the three regions in the north,
Right.
they represent 2.5 million of the votes, of the registered voters.
How many
And
million?
in 2.5 million of the
Oh,
votes,
you are talking
of the
about
registered
registered votes. Registered
of the
voters.
votes
Yeah.
of the people that voted in 2018, 2.5 million were in those three regions, right?
Okay.
And Bia had 2 million out of those 2.5 million votes.
Okay.
And he won with 2.5 million votes. So you can just imagine how important that region is. And the fact that two of his allies who brought many of those votes, Bilo Buba and Chiroma, have left that coalition, then that we all need to fight for those votes. That's
Yeah.
really, it's the North that will decide the outcome of this election. And I think there's something very telling that happened today. Via his first campaign trip and his first outing since February. I mean, not the first outing, but the first time he spoke to the Cameroonian people since February.
Okay.
So they took the kids out of school. They took all the children out of school so that they would go welcome the president. as they were marching and going towards the place where they were to wait for the president, they were chanting Isa Chiroma, Isa Chiroma, Isa Chiroma. These are children. And so, and if you go anywhere, if you talk to the motorcycle drivers, you talk to, I mean, anyone in the society, whether in rural areas or in the cities, they're all looking to vote for this man because they believe that it's through him that they can get control of their country back. So the idea is to bring the control back to the population. And they believe that they can achieve that goal through Issa Chiroma. So it's not so much that he has a special program, or it's just that he agreed to be a transitional candidate.
Yeah.
He agreed that he was coming on a mission, and not to implement, all of these lofty policies. And I think that they're like, okay, this guy, he knows all their tricks. So he is an insider, but because he's an insider, he knows exactly what they are going to do, how they're going to do it. And I think that, okay, you're coming from the system, so you're going to be our gangster, right? So this is, you say it's gangster against gangster. You know all their methods. You're going to use those
He
methods
is a
on our behalf.
gangster. He is a gangster. That may be true. Sorry for interrupting you. However, you have better gangsters who control the machinery of the election. How do you think he is going to scale over that?
I don't think you understand the magnitude of what's happening here.
But
I've never seen it.
you remember
It's
we saw
the
those
population.
you remember
The
we saw
population
those
has
same
never.
crowds with Frundi,
Oh,
with Campton.
oh, yeah, but we saw them with Frundi.
Yeah.
We saw them with Kamto in the cities. We didn't see those Kamto crowds in the far north.
Okay.
So let's wait to see, and that's the key. Is the West, the Littoral, some center has always been opposition stronghold, right? That's where
Okay.
we've gotten that. But that is not Chiroma's base. But Chiroma is getting most of the support from the opposition regions, as well as from his base in the north. And so that is an additional amount of votes that we would not have had in a normal election, here in Cameroon.
Interesting. Now, look at the scenario. I'm sure you read this statement written by Emmanuel in Salai that I mentioned in my monologue. And Emmanuel in Salai is essentially making the case for why Issa Chiroma should be disqualified. You are on the ground. What are people saying about that?
Nothing, because Emmanuel Salah is a non-problem. He's a non-person. Like nobody pays attention to Emmanuel
How can you
Salah
just
here.
dismiss him like
And
that? He is
so,
very much. Don't you think that what he is
oh, he
doing
talks a
is
lot. It's all PR. It's all PR. Really, it's just again to destabilize. They want to paint Chioma as a terrorist. It's like as if he's financed terrorism. And they had Paul Tasson out, unfortunately, saying basically a whole thing about he didn't call him when his house was burnt and things like that. Listen, nobody. We don't care. Do you understand? You could
yeah.
tell Cameroonians today that Chiroma killed somebody's grandmother. I don't think they would care. At this point, we don't care. It's like you don't care. We want change so badly that we will do everything we need to get that change. And if that includes fighting for Chiroma, if they try, and I don't know that the regime would be so stupid as to do that. It will create it would be like this that we don't want violence. We really do not want violence. But if the regime tries to do that after they disqualified Kamto, they're asking for violence, and they're asking for war. And I think that there are some people in this government that are intelligent enough to know that this is not, the Atanganjis and the hardcore
Yes.
in the government have not served this government properly. They've made the Cameroonians despise this government even more. And we will not be intimidated by Atanganji or Emmanuel Salai or any of their threats, because this is our election. It is not about Chiroma.
This is the
So you remove
problem.
Chiroma, yeah.
This is the problem. We have seen this with Chairman John Frundi in the 90s when everybody knew he won the election. It was rigged and taken away from him, rigged a second time, taken away from him, and they said, why are you not fighting for this thing? Frundi said, I don't want war, I don't want blood. Kamto won the election again. They said, why are you not fighting for this thing? Cameroonians in Europe were going amok and destroying things. I mean, going on a rampage in Europe, asking Kamto to fight. Kamto refused to fight. Now you have Chiroma. It is
Now we have a
obvious
fighter.
this election will be rigged. And after it is rigged, a lot of people will go to Chiroma and say, you know what? We would like you to be president of the Senate, president of the National Assembly. What if Chiroma comes out and say like Frundi, like Kamto, I don't want war, I don't want blood in the country? Don't you see this coming up?
No, not in this election. I can assure you that it's not about. See, so Kamto is right. I mean, Chiroma is riding on public sentiment. I don't know if you remember this, but if you look at the beginning of the Anglophone crisis, which we don't like to call it that, but if you remember Agborbala, and then when in January 2017, when the government wanted them to sign some memo,
Yeah.
if you remember, it wasn't really about the movement, was never about its leaders. So the leaders were there for the people, and they were there to act on behalf of the people. They weren't acting on their own behalf. And that's the role that Shiroma has right now, is that we have mandated him with a mission. He has a responsibility that he needs to carry out. So it's not about Kamto. It's about the people. And because the people have selected him, even though we haven't selected him in an election, the support for him is overwhelming. I don't know if you saw that CRTV on their WhatsApp channel ran a poll last night. They're starting yesterday, and by today, Chiroma was so far ahead. Bia was number 5. He was so far ahead that they deleted the poll. The support
You mean
is
CRT was able to run a poll that didn't show Paul Biya winning?
I know, right? And that's the thing about technology. That's the thing about
Interesting.
technology. You can't cheat in WhatsApp, right? So
Yes.
when they saw the results, they just deleted it because they realized that they could not control it. And he had 10 times, literally 10 times the amount of votes that Bia had. And he was and I just don't know. There's no question that he is currently the opposition leader, and that he has overwhelming public support because he's there to do something for us, not because. So you eliminate
I will
him.
wait on
who is-
when you say he is there to do something for us. I will
Yeah.
wait until I see
Oh
what
no,
he does.
we want him to do one thing and one thing only, and that's remove these people.
You want him to
After
do
that,
one thing. Let me ask you this question: What do you, behind him, pushing him? What do you want him to do for Ambazonia, the conflict?
I think the first thing is to release the prisoners. There's no reason why our brothers are currently in prison. There is no reason. That's the number one thing. And that has to be done on day one. The second thing is we need to sit down and talk, because we are brothers and sisters, and we need to sit down and figure out, what do we want in the future? I don't want to speak for that. I live in Douala. I don't live in Ground Zero. right? And we
Yeah.
need the people that actually live and will and have to live through this to decide. It can't be us. Chris, you're in the U.S. I'm in Douala. But we need to help facilitate that dialogue and help guide the dialogue so that we can arrive at a solution that works, and that takes into account what the people on the ground really want. And I don't want to speak for them. I can't. But we need to put in place the mechanisms so that their voice can be heard. And then we implement those decisions. And I think that he has committed to that. He signed, like there's a contract signed where he has committed to doing this.
Oh, that's
Is
very
committed
interesting.
to.
I wish I can lay
Oh
hands on
yeah,
the
he signed.
contract.
Oh, I'll send it to you.
That would be
I'll send it
awesome.
to you.
That would be awesome.
Oh no, no,
Now
no.
he
He
is talk.
signed the.
Go ahead.
Oh
Go ahead.
yeah, he signed.
Finish your point. Yeah.
He signed. It was a condition for the Union for Change that carried his candidacy as an opposition, as their candidate, coalition candidate. That was a condition, is for him to sign the contract. And then when they made the announcement, he made an entire speech and committed to respecting that contract. Now, will he respect it? Maybe he won't try, but we will make him respect it, because
How will it
once
make
we've
him when he
taken,
takes over? He has the army, he has the police, he has the gendarme, he has. How will you get him to do
do you
that?
know what happens? Do you know what happens when a people understand their power? Do you know what happens if, for the first time in the history of Cameroon, the elected leader, the new leader, is chosen by the people? We've never chosen a new leader in Cameroon. We've never.
My concern with any French uh, uh, African leaders is that the moment they take over power, their ears are to the French and not to the people. And you are talking about a memorandum of understanding.
I can tell you one thing. Having spoken to several diplomats, especially European diplomats, that Chiroma is not their candidate at all.
Okay.
And I think that there's a reason for that. And so I think we overestimate Europe, right? I think that we overestimate and underestimate the real ally of this regime, which is Israel, right? So if you noticed, Cameroon never votes against Israel in the United Nations. They have supported. They provide security for the president. They are the ones that are training and in charge of beer. And so I think that we overestimate the influence of France and Europe, and underestimate the influence of Israel. So, and I think that's where, the work, I think the diplomatic work needs to also happen, because we're not going to have support a electoral coup, right? So
Yeah.
if the results at the polls are strong enough, then and overwhelming enough, then it will be really, really hard. And so I think that what opposition parties are trying to do right now is getting as many people to the polls as possible. The last time the absentee, the level of non-voters, registered voters that did not go to the polls was higher than Paul Biya's victory. And so today I had several people out from work, only because they want to go stand in line to get their electoral cards, and the Elecam is overwhelmed. We've never seen anything like this, and I can assure you that if they try something, it's not going to go down easy. Things will never be the same. This is really a tipping point and a turning point in the history of La République.
Now tell me, because Cameroon, where they do the rigging is at the collation of the results. How is it going to be done? You know that Yaoundé takes the results, sit on it for 1 week, do all the rigging, the fraud they have to do before they go out, get the Constitutional Council or ELECAM to announce the results. How are you going to prevent, to fight this stage of rigging?
So we know that our adversary isn't only Paul Biya. We also know that our adversary is ILICAM, the Ministry of Territorial Administration, and the Constitutional Council. They've all been organized in order to have only one result. And so there are lots of different things that the opposition has been working, and it didn't start today. As soon as 2018 happened, they started to get organized, and so they registered a lot of voters and did a lot of voter education. Even in rural areas, there's been a lot of on the ground work done primarily by the CRM, which is Camto's party, but also by other parties, and some organizations like Stand Up for Cameroon have been very, very instrumental in making sure that Cameroonians are educated about their rights and their electoral rights, and really plugging, finding all the holes in the electoral system. And so there are also some technology solutions that have been identified. So that when people are at the polling station, the results, everybody that goes to vote is allowed to stay in the polling station until the votes are tallied. And so these applications that have been developed allow you to report directly from the polling station into the app what the results were of the election. And we know that they'll probably shut down the internet so that those apps won't work in real time. But there are, they can work offline. And then when people are then able to connect to the internet, they can upload the results to a central database. Once they're uploaded, by the end of that night, and if there's no internet, again, there's SMS solutions and regular non-internet solutions. That very night, we will know what the results are. The people will know, and we will announce what we found as far as the results. Now, if they choose to go and announce something different,
would the polling stations be allowed to announce their results that night independently before the totals are put on Yaoundé?
So the way it works is that when you go to vote, they have what they call scrutateur or something like that, right? So
Yeah.
out of the people that are there to vote, the people that actually count, that pull the ballot out and count and mark it, are actually just voters, right?
Okay.
They're not election officials, they're just voters. And so it's whoever is still there when they're counting the vote. So, and you are allowed by law to stay in the polling station that you voted in. And so we're telling people, don't leave. Right? Don't leave, because you want to make sure that they're going to count all the votes. And then, yes, so they count the votes and then they announce the results of the votes right there before sending the results on to the regional and then so on and so forth. And so it's really important. Photographic evidence, so much evidence. We need as much proof as we have, because the problem in 2018, and because of 2018, they've gotten smarter about it, right? So
Yes.
one of the, if you remember, Michel Doki, who was from the CRM party at the time, went in front of the Constitutional Council to fight the results. And she actually is behind one of these applications. And so she knows exactly what they need in order to bring to the courts. You need the evidence. And the last time, they weren't smart enough to have kept proof. And so it was very difficult to fight that. But with that evidence, I think that it's much harder for them to lie. And we know that they will try, but if we have the evidence, it will be much harder for them to lie. And we will have much larger numbers, much larger turnout than we did in 2018. And so those are all mechanisms to try to make sure that each vote is protected.
What do you do with the problem of ghost voting stations? Because I have seen a list emerging from Libialum, that is my own county, of voter stations where those stations do not exist. They name places where elections are taking place, where those places do not exist. I have seen that
So,
list, and I
yeah.
think many other places are like that.
Yeah, so I think that that we will still have them. I mean, it's going to be very difficult, even with all the funding that we can get to support the opposition parties during this election, so that each and every polling station, and there are 30,000 of them, representatives from opposition parties. That's the goal, is to get 30,000 and even have two per position. That's all. Now you're always going to have some cheating, and what the effort is that's going on is that if you have an overwhelmingly, if the result is big enough and the difference is big enough, that fraud won't influence the result as much. So if you're saying that you have a polling station where they'll say 100% goes to Bia, but there are 100 people, and then you've had 3 million voting for Chiroma. If those small cheating here and there, they will, we just want to have such an overwhelming turnout
Yeah.
that rigging will have less of an impact on the result. So there are multiple layers of mechanisms that are being used to protect each vote. If you have critical mass, they become less visible, less important in the overall result.
Now let's talk about Ambazonia a little bit. I'm sure you are well aware that we in Ambazonia have banned the elections altogether in our territory for reasons you know. I have heard the argument that, Chris, this is such an opportunity for Ambazonia, Southern Cameroonians to make a difference and get the change that they want. As you heard out there, I talked to Isa Chiroma, I talked to everybody, and Isa Chiroma is talking about a referendum. A referendum. I don't know what would be the questions at the referendum he is talking about, but what do you make of the fact that we are saying no elections in Ambazonia?
I think it's a mistake, to be honest, because they will have elections, and there will be a result. It just won't be a result that's representative of the people that are on the ground. And that's what I think that's the call, is saying, hey, guys, you're letting the presidential candidates go to those areas, and then but the people can't vote. We're doing all of this for the people. There's nothing that's being done that's for anybody but for the people. And it's important, I think, to let the people be able to express themselves on that day. And what will happen is that the army and security forces will be the ones to vote, and not the population. And so I think you talked about dialogue. Part of it is letting our people express themselves, and I think that it would have a significant impact. And I think it would be a way also to say to this government that, listen, here it is. Somebody is saying that they're willing to talk to us. They're willing to treat us as equals, and to have conversations with us, and respect the fact that we do have grievances, and that we are requiring that they be resolved. And so this is what we're able to do. So if the Cameroon government had come and said, hey, we'd like to have elections, can you open it up? Without coming and apologizing, without coming and promising reforms, and promising this referendum, and promising that I think what I'm trying to say is that it will be a demonstration to the Cameroon government that, hey, we are not, we have always been open for dialogue. You're the ones that have shut down the dialogue. Now we have an opportunity to have that dialogue. And in order to give that opportunity a chance, we were going to allow our people to vote in your election. And we want them to have the freedom to do that and feel confident that there won't be any issues on the ground. And I think that that is it would send such a powerful message to saying that we are capable um, of discussing and negotiating and having dialogue. And we are ready to take measures when we think that it's going to happen. Here it is. And I think it will further embarrass the government. It will further embarrass the government that here is opposition that's able to get this concession, whereas they have never been able to.
But this is a problem. Here is a problem. The opposition you're talking about, they're not ready to sit down to talk to Amazonian leaders. Can you imagine?
Of course they are. I think they
They're
will.
not-
I
let me
think they
tell
have
you,
no.
I speak.
We cannot. We
I
can't
speak
have
with.
peace.
Let me tell you something.
if we don't
I
talk.
speak to Eric Chinje and Onga Onana with their group, and Eric Chinje said to me, "Chris, this is an opportunity for Ambazonians, Southern Cameroons, to get the change that they want. If they can just open up the terrain to work." And I said to Eric Chinje, "You want us to listen to you? This is what I would love you to do. Gather all those opposition leaders. You are talking to them. Let's have a meeting together with Ambazonian leaders." Eric said, "What a great suggestion." That never happened. Cantor was campaigning. He came to the US, invited people to come and listen to him. When Ambazonians show up wearing their national colors, the blue-white colors, he told them, don't let them in. You will have separate meetings with them. That never happened. Currently, as they go on with the elections, we have said, let's sit down and talk. Let's listen to what you have to offer after your election. Without that, we cannot open the territory to you because we don't trust you, considering the history of the political leaders in this country. And if they are out there talking about referendum to placate Ambazonians, I don't think that is going to work. And you consider that for 64 years, Southern Cameroonians have been voting in that country, and there has been no change. No change. Why do you think at this moment they should believe that Chiroma or Libri or Osi or Bello will bring that change? Why do you think they should think so?
I remember when Gbagbo moved back from when he was released, and he went back to Cote d'Ivoire. And I remember one moment where there was a picture of him and Ouattara, and they were holding hands, and I was like, oh, these politicians, you can't even trust them. And a few days later, the prisoners that had been arrested, that were on Gbagbo's side, were released. And I said, okay, this is why he did that. It wasn't because he wanted to talk to Ouattara. It was because it was so important to him to give the opportunity for those who were in prison, for following him, an opportunity to get out of prison. And I think that if we value our brothers and their lives of those who are in prison, if we believe, and I do believe, that if there's a new government that comes in, that they will be immediately released. I think it's worth whatever sacrifice it's worth it. Just that is worth it. And I can tell you that that's so important, that they get out of prison. And then we can have real dialogue, because you can't have dialogue with people behind bars. And so I think that just for our brothers and the chance and opportunity we might have for them to be released, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it. I think sometimes in life, you need to sacrifice your own personal opinion, your own personal preferences for
but
the
that is
good of others.
but there's a
And
problem
I
there,
think
though.
many
I
of
don't
us,
think those brothers you are referring to will tell you all they want is release from jail. They will tell you we
nobody
want.
says that all they want is, but you can't imagine. You can't imagine. It's the for me, it's one of the, it's a great injustice. And I think I would love for them to be able to participate in the dialogue, in the discussions, and they can't do that from behind bars. And so really, I'm pleading with you. I'm pleading with
I'm not
you
in jail, you know that
to
I
give.
still have my
I
liberties.
know I'm not, you're not in jail, but I'm pleading with you to give peace a chance. To give peace a chance. I know it's another chance. And I know these people, they've betrayed us so many times. All politicians have betrayed us. But I can assure you that give it a chance. Give peace a chance. This is an attempt. We may fail. We may, lose. But at least you know in your heart of hearts, and we all know that we did our very best to give peace a chance. It's
We
just a few
want to,
days.
we
Not
want to, we want the opportunity to sit down with anybody who is willing to talk about a solution to the conflict. However, it's like the door is still far ahead. We don't want to start bending from here. Why the door is still a mile away? We think that let whoever wins Cameroon elections win, and if the person is truly interested to resolving the conflict, he can call in for a negotiation, a dialogue, not another grand national dialogue, but a dialogue that resolves on the sovereignty of the Southern Cameroons. At that table, we may think about whether giving peace a chance in your terminology or saying, well, we have lost our people a lot. We stand on a free Ambazonia. Until then, I think it is premature to go and say, let's go out for some elections because
it's
we
for
are
how many
hoping that,
days? It's
yes,
it's for how many days? It's for how many days? How many days?
few days to
The
come.
elections are on Sunday. Just a few days. Just give that a chance. I'm
It's
begging
too late.
you
It's
to
too
give
late,
it a
though.
chance. It's not too late. It's never too late. There's never a deadline for peace.
Rebecca, this
We
is not
can do
about
this and we
peace.
can do this now.
Rebecca, this is not
Listen,
about
if you
peace.
want, if
This
you
is
want
about
another
Rebecca, this
seven
is not about
years
peace.
of,
It is about making things right. It is about justice. You agree, I have no doubt about that. As a Southern Cameroonian, as an Ambazonian, I know you may not like that appellation, but that's who you
it's fine.
are.
You
I
might
know
not
for
know this. Look, you
okay.
might not know this, but first of all, my father was the first president of the Cameroon Anglophone movement. So I grew up with
Oh,
this.
oh yeah, you
And
Enonchong, yeah,
yes,
yeah.
and Fongorji Dinka, who coined the phrase Ambazonia, the
Ambazonia,
name
yeah,
Ambazonia.
right.
He spent a year in my mom's apartment in the US. And the first Ambazonia flag, I have a picture of the first Ambazonia flag. It was what, the early 90s or late 80s or something like that. And I have a picture, and I'll send you the picture. It's
Okay.
just to say that I know this history and I feel it. I've lived it. I grew up with this knowledge of this is what has happened to our people, and I'm very passionate about it. But I also I value human life. I value human life, and it burns me to the core to see people like my dear friend Dr. Fidelis, who has transformed so many lives around technology, not being able to continue to do his work. And I think that those people that are in prison have so much to contribute, not just to this cause, but to the world. And it hurts me to my core to see that we have an opportunity. It may not pan out, but for goodness sakes, if we have an opportunity to make this right and to get our people the freedom that they need, isn't it worth taking it? Isn't it worth
I
it?
agree with you.
What
There
do
may
you
be
have
an
to lose?
opportunity, but it doesn't
But what
seem
do you
like
have
we are
to
there
lose?
yet.
But what do you have to lose, Chris? Tell me.
We
You don't have
have to
anything to lose
let them conduct their
and
elections.
everything to gain.
Let them conduct their elections, and whoever wins, then we can talk about an opportunity for
But
peace.
you
Because
understand that people will vote in those areas, but not
yeah,
our people.
sure, absolutely,
You understand that?
yes.
Okay, so you
The point
understand
is,
that vote,
but the point is,
that vote
but the point is,
could tilt the election in their favor.
but Rebecca, the point
And
is,
how will you feel if you had an opportunity to affect and impact the outcome of this election in favor of freedom, in favor of peace, and that you chose not to take that opportunity? How will you feel if the difference in the votes is equal to the vote in Southern Cameroon? How will you feel?
Rebecca, you know the history of voting in Cameroon. Whether Ambazonians vote or they do
It's
not vote,
different.
Cameroon will
It's
claim
different.
99%. Maybe they may go down to 65% this time because of the pressure. They will always win. They have won for 64 years since we joined them.
But that's such a defeatist attitude. It's so defeatist.
It's
And
reality. It's reality.
I'm an optimist. And as I said in the video in which I was endorsing Chioma, I said, I'd rather believe and be wrong than not believe and be right. I need us all to believe that we can change the outcome of this election. And I think if we all believe it and we all take our energy and our efforts, we can do it. We can achieve this. We are really at a tipping point, and I'm begging you to see the opportunity and look at this with optimism. I know I'm not going to convince you on this show, but I hope that you take my words and that you go back and you reflect on them and say, okay, take a risk. It is a risk. I understand. We could fail, but let's try. Let's try. And I can tell you, and I'm sure you talk to people on the ground. If they have an opportunity to vote, they will vote for change. They will vote for change.
We've always
And we
been
need
told we're voting for change. Remember from the days of Frundi, he was voting for change. Change never showed up.
come on,
Or the
come
only
on, come
person
on.
who
This is
changed was Frundi.
2025. We're in 2025. I'm
All right.
telling you, it's different.
All right. Please, Rebecca, just hang in there for about 15 more minutes. I'm going to open the phone lines and allow people, the listeners, to call in, ask any question they may have. But remember, before you call, make sure you shut down the volume of your television, because there will be a delay if you want to ask questions listening to me or my guests from your television. If you have to call, make sure you shut down the volume of your television and focus on your phone before you call. You have the phone line right there on your screen. So please go ahead and call. Go ahead and call. The phone line is open. So, Rebecca, let me get back to you while we expect the phone calls to come in. You are such a powerful woman. Many people watching you, I don't think they know you a lot because you are not so much out there in the media, but Forbes magazine names you one of the 50th most powerful women in all of Africa. That is to show the weight that you carry. Give me 1 second. Let me get this caller before I will continue. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Comrade Chris.
Good afternoon, sir. May I know where you're calling from, please?
I'm calling from Chicago.
Okay, Chicago. All right. What is on your mind, sir?
Yeah, I want to just ask Madam Rebecca why she keeps saying that this election is an opportunity for Southern Cameroon to have a change. That's my question.
All right, Rebecca, over to you.
It's an opportunity because
Thank you for the call.
if we stay with the current government, the hardliners in that government will never allow any progress. It's almost as if they enjoy the current situation, and they will continue to perpetuate the current situation. And so, as I said, we don't know for sure that this will help, but I think that there's a good chance that it will help. At least we'll get our prisoners out, and we can start that dialogue. And I think, Chris, you said earlier that Chiroma, you and he have discussions, and you may not agree. And what I've found is in this election, having spoken, we had a big debate. They call it debate, but it was individuals, and we had these exchanges last Sunday night. And what I realized is that they still don't understand what caused this. I heard one of the candidates say very proudly that her children were Anglophones. So I think they're still confusing speaking English with the crisis. And so, what I've also understood over the years, because I was born in Yaoundé, I grew up in Douala, but I grew up surrounded by people whose first love was Southern Cameroons and had fought for the rights of our people. And because of that, I know the history. I know what happened. I know that's not the case of many Francophones. And so I think what we think they know, they don't know. And so that opportunity
Come
for
on, I
dialogue,
don't
and
get a
I think
point. They don't know what we know. They don't see our suffering. They don't see
they
our
don't,
internally displaced. They don't
well,
see
they
our
don't,
refugees. They don't see
for them,
our towns, our villages burned down.
but you know that they had villages burned down in the 60s. They had villages burnt down. So the same methods that are being used against Southern Cameroonians today are the same methods that in colonial times or in the war for independence, where 700,000 Cameroonians were killed um, fighting for independence. They're using the same methods, the same burning down villages. And so many Francophones feel that, well, they have issues too. Like there's poverty in their area. They don't understand the political history of Southern Cameroons. And because of that, they make a lot of assumptions. And I think one of the things this government has done, and they're so proud of all their efforts, is to translate the French system into English and think that that's what we wanted. Okay, so we've solved the problem. So now ENAM, which is the school for magistrates,
Yeah.
now there's a common law section. Like, but where in anywhere do we have a school for magistrates except for France? Like, where does it
Yeah,
happen?
yeah.
And so it's this, and I
Why
say
can't
that
our
I'm just giving
graduates
that as
from
an example.
Boya become magistrates?
But
Write a bar exam
but
and become magistrates, right?
I'm just giving that as an example
Yeah.
of the complete lack of understanding between the political history. And so we need to bridge that. I try on Twitter, especially in the earlier days, and I even do it in French because I understand. I thought that they understood English, but they don't. And so I take my time and I do it in French so that they can be educated on. Many people don't even know there was a Northern Cameroons. That's not North Cameroon. So they don't know. I was arguing with a 7-year-old man about Boya being the capital of Cameroon. I mean, it's unbelievable the lack of political education that they have. And so I don't want to blame them. I don't want to blame them because we need to find a way for that political education, the history of Southern Cameroons, and also to educate our people on the history and the hundreds of thousands of people that lost their lives fighting for independence. And then in the end, those who fought for independence aren't the ones who were put in power. And so there's all of this history that needs to be unwound and explained. And so, yes, things have happened in the past, but we always have an opportunity, I think, to fix that. And I think it starts with dialogue. And so I really think that dialogue is the most important thing. Open, real dialogue, not dialogue to sign an agreement, but dialogue so that brothers and sisters, which we all are, we are brothers and sisters. We sit down and talk.
That is you.
We are all brothers and sisters. Even our Nigerian cousins are brothers and sisters. So we are all brothers and sisters. We are all brothers and sisters.
All right, let's take this other
an
question,
Africanist.
So let's get to this other caller.
Yeah.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, good evening, Comrade Chris.
Good evening, sir. Where are you calling from, please?
I am calling from Nigeria.
Okay, what is on your mind?
Yes, I wish to ask our sister Rebecca Enonchong, is she aware that the French system is a very brutal system and it's always very difficult to interact with them? Think of Senegal and Gambia. They did everything to live like brothers. Couldn't go. So what does she think that does she still have in mind that if we happen to live like that, we live with these people, they will continue brutalizing us? So is she thinking that after the election something can change from maybe the leader, the new leader? And how confident is she that that elections can be free and fair?
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
We know. All right.
Thank you. 50 seconds. We've got a lot of calls, so you can take as many before you leave, please.
So, okay, very quickly. First, I'll start with the end. Elections will not be free and fair, but we're trying to get critical mass so that the unfairness and the fraud, the electoral fraud will be minimal, like compared to the overwhelming number of people. I have no idea what a new leader will bring other than the ability to release our prisoners and start open dialogue with our people. And as I said earlier, I don't know what our people want. And I don't want to be in a position where I'm speaking for people. I don't live in Ground Zero. I live in Douala. So I want our people to have an opportunity to speak for themselves. I'm not their spokesperson. And I don't want to say what they want and what we will be able to achieve. But I think that it's really important to talk. And I think that this is an opportunity to start repairing and fixing.
All right. All right. Let's get to the next caller here. Hello.
Hello, Comrade Chris.
Yes, sir. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from France. Good evening.
From France. Okay.
Yeah, this is Comrade Eno. I would like to speak to Ma Rebecca.
You are live, sir. Go on.
Language.
What? 50 seconds.
Yeah, that's in Pidgin English.
All right.
Yeah, Ma Rebecca, I'll be very happy to say you take the courage to can stand to see Comrade Chris on that talk. Comrade Chris being one of the best way be open. It receive any person we get idea for say for humanity make it peace. Best like Ma Rebecca, you be for humanity, for peace. But the truth is not that. The truth may be that way you talk. You just want peace. But the peace we did now, we turn and none of Ambazonian fighters or Ambazonian leaders. Maybe we declare war for ourselves. Now some person can't stand declare war for ourselves. Why be say when they can't talk for talk now say now we cause the problem? The person who caused that problem never come back and talk say we'll be sorry. I don't do this. Easter Churuma, he go hug his own because he knows he be a politician. which post if you first get of La Republique, a communication minister, and a communication minister and a person for propaganda, and a politician where you know everything, have manipulate the people, their ideas, for come down, for hear the talk. After he go for Bamenda, he talk with people and say,
make your point, make your point, make your point.
Okay, my point is that Churuma is a politician. Churuma is a politician. Ma Rebecca, you talk now about peace. Why you never talk say, okay, we Ambazonian, more call a referendum because we fully talk say, would they threaten people there, would they do this for people then? Maybe we'll bring a referendum. It's not the election will happen for the for La Republique, maybe for we. So if people they talk say now we do hold the election, it's not like that.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let me just reframe the question a little bit. I think it makes a legitimate point there. You are talking about peace. You know that this war was declared on us. We did not ask for war. November 17, I remember, Biya returning from Cote d'Ivoire, AU meeting, right there at the airport in Yaoundé, he declared war on the southern Cameroons. Now, it will take that same regime an announcement, just an announcement to say, we are ready to sit down and negotiate like the brothers that you say they are, right? Don't you think that some of you ought to be putting, I know you are doing your best out there by talking about peace, but don't you think that some of you can put more pressure on that government to say you call the war, you are able to stop it? Because having gone for 9 years, there is no way we're going to turn and look back after with so many people have been killed. I have lost family, my mother, my father, my home, everything you can imagine. How do you think at this moment we can just think about peace as if nothing happened in the past 9 years?
No, I think, there is a saying, I think it's there's no justice, no peace, right? So in order to achieve that peace is the end. But the process to get there is long and it's difficult. And I think that but it starts with dialogue. We don't get to the end without some justice. And that justice is what we all want. And that justice is what will lead to the peace. So, but how do we get that justice, right? How do we get that justice? We'll never get it out of this current regime. We will never get it out of them. And so we can wait and say, okay, well, we're going to put pressure on the Biya regime. If they win the elections again, we'll just put pressure on them. They won't relent, because I think, to be honest with you, I think that some of them are actually benefiting from the war, right? And
on
so
their side,
because
of course, yes.
I think they're personally benefiting from some of the contracts for weapons or whatever.
People like Port are
they're very self-interested. And they will fight. I mean, I know of so many examples where there was the beginning of dialogue, where all of a sudden something happened to make to inflame the situation, so that public sentiment would be against peace and dialogue. And so, I'm pretty sure that this current regime, in its and we've seen it as soon as Chiroma went to Bamenda, started talking about dialogue, started talking about, he knows Chris Anu and so on and so forth. The regime, like that was, for them, that is, and you can see them using that against him. And I think it's a reflection of, this is what we have. Is it where somebody goes to Bamenda, which is still in Cameroon, by the way, for the time being, Cameroon, right?
That is in Amazonia.
And says, I talked to my brother, and the regime sees it as terrorists, as terrorism, as supporting terrorism. Yeah. You can just imagine that mindset. We can't work with those folks. We can't convince them And I think it's really important. If we have a fresh set of eyes, we still will need to convince, because we still need to educate them on what happened, and as I said, the political history, so that we're having the dialogue on the same level of understanding, which is missing right now. And so I think we need a fresh set of people that we can start to educate about. These are the real issues, and it's not about the language. It's not because you didn't translate something. The issues are much deeper than that and much more important than that. They're not these superficial translation issues, but they need to be educated. And I can no longer educate the people that are there. We don't have anybody that we can talk to. I've tried. Believe me, I've tried every opportunity.
I get your point.
I get. And so give us an opportunity to have a new set of eyes that we can try to convince. And I'm not saying that right out of the, at least we'll have freedom for the political prisoners, and then a beginning of the dialogue. And yeah, that's what I'm supporting.
Let's take the last question before so many calls coming in. Unfortunately, for time constraints, we can't take all, but let's go to the last one. Hello.
Yes, hello.
Hello, sir. Where are you calling from, please?
I'm calling from Texas.
Okay, and what is on your mind, sir?
I have a few issues that I really want to address. The last speaker kind of got something out of me, but this is a war that was declared on us, and as you know, and first of all, I want to thank my sister, Miss Enonchong, for being here. This is a war that was declared on us, and the government of La République, the regime in Yaoundé, has not even taken time to discuss this in their parliament. And so that is something, and I remember growing up in Cameroon, when we tried to talk about anything violent, oh no, it's about the argument of what? The argument of, it's not the argument of force, but the argument of
ideas.
Of something like that, right?
Yeah.
So it was always about peace, 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 peace. They have declared war on us, they don't want to talk about it. Chiroma has come out and said that he's going to release some people except those with blood in their hands. And we are in a war. In a war, when you kill somebody, there is no blood in your hands. There is nothing like blood in your hands, because what blood? We are fighting a war. And so, and another thing is, this election, Bia can just get up tomorrow, regardless of what the result is, and just declare victory. We've seen that in the past, and nothing was done.
Yeah.
So, Miss Enonchong, I like your energy, I like your enthusiasm. Please, could you address some of these things that I just mentioned?
All right, thank you for the call. Rebecca, go on, please.
Okay, so you said something. You said we are fighting the war, but you're in Houston. There are people that are living in those zones. And there was a hashtag a few years ago that's not as active today, that was created by the people that are in Ground Zero. And it's called My Anglophone Crisis Story. I urge you to go and look at those stories of people that are living in that zone and what they are enduring day in and day out. And I say, I don't know how long ago you left Cameroon, but Cameroon has changed a lot. And
almost 13 years.
And our children have changed a lot. I spend a lot of time in Boya, because that's where we have one of our tech hubs. So we opened a tech hub in Boya called Active Spaces, the African Center for Technology, Innovation, and Ventures. And we started in Boya in 2010. And it was in 2016 when two of our guys were arrested for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. They were tried for preparing an illegal meeting or something like that. So, this was a very, very, very beginning. And those young people, you would be surprised, feel very Cameroonian. Because what we haven't realized is that over the years, and they hate the situation, don't get me wrong, they hate the situation and they want this to change. But what has happened is that we grew up with our political history. We grew up knowing the history of Southern Cameroons. These kids, they have no idea what the history is. They hear these grown-ups talking about something that's very abstract to them. All they know is that they can go to school and get shot on their way to school. And I think that those of us that have the opportunity to live outside of ground zero, the number of refugees that are in Douala and Yaoundé and Bafoussam and that are suffering and suffering. And I'm not blaming that there's one responsible party, and that's the Cameroon government. But we have to be able to say, if we want our kids to survive, we need to give them an opportunity to do so. It's very easy to be sitting in Houston and saying, we're going to continue the war until somebody shows up in La République that's going to agree to our terms. It's not going to happen. And so we need to push that forward. And give the people in ground zero, those people that are living and enduring this war, an opportunity to express themselves.
But
Nobody
we are
talks
doing
to them.
so. The people on ground zero are telling us, I wish you were receiving the messages that I do. Even as you listen to the phone calls and the questions being posed to you, you can tell ground zero is resolved. Yes, there is suffering, there is pain, but they say to us, we cannot turn back, because if we turn back, it will be worse than what we've seen in the last 64 years. But let me ask you a question related to that. Let me ask you a question related. You can add that to this. You have these elites on ground zero, the Infortabe Tandos, the chiefs, the so-called elite from the southern Cameroon. I'm not talking about francophone elite. Don't you think that some of these messages should be directed to them?
But they don't live in ground zero.
Fighting hard to regain their freedom.
They don't. You're talking about people that live in Yaoundé.
Yeah,
they don't live there.
No,
they don't have any.
And that's why I'm saying. Yaoundé.
But to be honest, are you counting on them after all these years? Do you think they're going to change?
I'm saying that people like you who are in a position to pressure them and say you cannot have.
I'm not in a position to pressure this government. This is the same government, you remember, that arrested me a few years ago.
Okay.
I'm not in a position to pressure them.
Yes.
That's why I want them kicked out. I want this government to go. I need it to go. And I just think that sometimes when we're not in an environment, and I encourage you, it's on Twitter, it's called my Anglophone Crisis Story. Listen to these kids, they're children. They're the ones that are expressing themselves. All we can do is, they're talking about their daily lives and the things that are happening to them and what they're enduring. And I think it's really, really important that we hear them. We hear them because the youth.
We hear them. I have made trips to Nigeria, to refugee camps, to listen to them. And I think if anybody should be in pain at the moment, I don't know if it is not the refugees, I don't know who else, it should be. They are not sure of 2 meals a day. They're not sure of shelter. They're not sure of clothing. When I went there, we took food there and I saw these people, I wept. I literally wept in front of them, looking at the tattered manner in which they look. And yet you have a regime that says, my citizens, none of the politicians in La République of Cameroon has visited our refugees for the past 9 years of war. None of them. And yet They cry foul that people are protesting, they are suffering. We have seen this. We support them. We raise funds, support the IDP, support the refugee. It's not like we don't understand this thing. We do, but the good thing is the people themselves are resolved. Let's not cut and run.
I mean, one thing I will completely agree with you on is the resolve, right? I think that one of the mistakes that this regime made was to believe that it was a movement of leaders, right? So you can change all the leaders and the problem remains because
Right.
it's not a leader thing. It's really a movement that came from the people. All I'm saying is that sometimes I think we have the best intentions, and we want to help. And I'll give you one example. I was vice president of Manual Elements in the US. And we organized, we would do things every year. We would have send containers full of things to help our people. And we raised lots of money and did lots of great work. And then I think it was 1990, we decided to, I think it was 90, we decided that we would have the Manu World Conference. We would all meet up in Mamfe, right? All the Meccas in the world, we would meet up in Mamfe with the Mecca Cameroon. Do you know that I felt incredibly stupid because a lot of what we thought they needed, and we were all, I mean, we would travel to Cameroon frequently, and what we thought they needed was completely not what they needed. So it was good intentions, but the result was that what they wanted was, for instance, it was just that some of them had just been appointed mayor and they didn't know what they were supposed to do. They wanted training. They wanted to explain how the tax regime made it so that they couldn't store goods because they would have to pay tax on stored goods, and then they couldn't move them during the rainy season. They couldn't move them, and so I mean all sorts of issues, but none of them we had thought of or understood. And so it was like a reawakening for me when I moved back to Cameroon in 2004. I opened my subsidiary here, an office here in 2002. And I thought I really understood a lot of things. I would travel back to Cameroon multiple times a year. My father lives here. At that time. And I felt like I understood the country. And there was actually, I had students from Columbia University, MBA students in New York that followed me for 6 months in Cameroon. They traveled, followed my story, and wrote their thesis on my returning and opening the subsidiary in Cameroon. And if you read the thing, it's published, it's still online. It's like Rebecca Enonchong and AppsTech from the US to Cameroon, something like that. It's still online. If you read it, I sound so intelligent. I sound like I know what I'm talking about. Let me tell you, I knew nothing. Like Cameroon will school you. Like absolutely nothing. It's only when you come here and you live here and you live daily and have the daily issues that you start to get a semblance of understanding of what this country is about. I remember also one time we had a conference in Boya called the Silicon Mountain Conference, and you had called for Ghost Town just a few days before, and I was actually worried about going forward with the conference, but we had the conference. And you would be really surprised. When I think somebody got up and said, "Oh, time for the national anthem." I was scared. I just held my hand like this. I'm like, these people are crazy.
Which anthem were they trying to sing? A foreign anthem.
That one. And I was like, oh no. I was messaging one of my team members, and I was like, no. Why? It's a tech conference. What are we doing? Do you know that there were about 800 people? They all stood up, these young children, and they sang the national anthem. And they sang it with pride. And I said,
Which anthem did they
wow,
sing?
that was
The Cameroon anthem?
that one. I'm
They
telling
were
you.
fortunate nobody caught them.
Yeah. Well, yes, that too. What I'm saying is that these kids grew up as Cameroonians, not as Southern Cameroonians, and we need to acknowledge that. And that education that I'm talking about, that we need to do to Francophones, we also need to do it to our own children. They have no idea. They have no idea what all this political stuff is about. And I think we have a responsibility to them, and to listen to them. And I don't think we do enough of that. You did a trip for the refugees. That's amazing. That's important. But it doesn't mean that you get it. And I
think,
want us to
Rebecca,
all
listen, I
no,
think,
no, Chris.
I
This
think,
is rude.
no,
I
listen,
must
I think you have to understand.
I will say.
You have to understand.
You think you do.
You have
and
to
I don't.
understand.
That's why I said when you said when the person asked what I felt about what's happening in Ground Zero, and I said I live in Douala. I'm right next. I go to Boya frequently. I go to. I will not. I'm humble enough, even though I'm not. I don't sound very humble right now, but I'm humble enough to know that I want those people that are on the ground, that are living there currently, to make the decisions they need to make for themselves.
Do you think somebody is out making decisions for them?
I think that sometimes you think you know better what they want.
No, not really.
No, I'm not saying you, Chris. I'm not saying you, Chris. I'm saying the movement. I'm saying it's not personal. I just want us to be more to recognize the importance of talking to these young people. I just finished my company. We take interns every year. We just had about 20 interns that finished on Friday, this past Friday. There are 3 months of internship on software engineering. All but 2 were Anglophone, right? They're English speaking from Southern Cameroon. And they'd come and traveled from mostly from Boya, but also from other parts.
What accounts for that? The very minimal number of Southern Cameroonians being part of being in the internship.
Oh, I mean, they were all but 2.
Yeah.
So out of
what
20,
accounts for that?
There were only 2 that were not from Southern Cameroon.
Oh, okay.
What
I
accounts
get
for
the point. All right.
My internship program.
I get the point. Yeah.
And so I can, So yes, I do favor people that come from Southern Cameroons to come do the internship. So that I do that. But what I'm saying is that these kids, I talk to them, they don't understand the history, and I think it's a blessing for me to be around them, but I also acknowledge that I don't know what they go through on a daily basis. I even though I'm close to them, even though I talk to them, I don't know. And I'm happy that they share with me, but I'm not in their shoes. I'm not in their shoes, and I want them to have a vehicle, an opportunity to express themselves fully and freely. And so I'm not sure that we do enough of that. And I'm not saying you only, I'm saying we as a community. We don't talk to our kids. We don't talk to the young people enough. We think we know better than they do. And so we think that we know what's best for them. And so we're not giving them an opportunity to talk and express
that
themselves.
Is the country that they live in. Right from birth, from going to school, they're never taught the right history. And so they grow up completely ignorant of their history. And when you have a regime that is afraid of being toppled, they hide stuff. And that is what that country has done for the past over 60 years.
Rebecca, we agree on that.
Yeah, I am so glad you found time to be my guest on the show. I will really look forward to having maybe another conversation with you after Sunday, actually, after the elections on Sunday.
I would be happy to.
And I really wish we could ask Ambazonians to go out and vote, but we are really hoping that we want to
I'm hoping that you'll give
We're not going to
It's
get
just
born
a few
again that
days.
soon, so let's wait until after the elections. We will see what happens.
It's just a few days. It's just a few days, Chris. It's
All
just a
right,
few days.
thank you
All right. Thank you.
thank
Thank
you
you
for
so
coming
much
on
for
the show.
having me. Have a good night.
Thank
Bye.
you, thank you.